Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the channel. My name is John. Today we're going to do a full breakdown of the Scarlett Johansson versus Disney lawsuit. Hey guys, how's it going? Again, welcome back to the channel. My name is John. I hope you'll subscribe to the channel as we go through reaction videos to various movies. Right now we're in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but also as we discuss certain legal topics as it relates to movies and television shows and other various things. So as many of you know, I practice law in Georgia, Tennessee, and Texas. I also used to be a judge, so I have a unique perspective in this sense. And so today we're going to talk about the Scarlett Johansson versus Disney lawsuit that was filed a few days ago because it covers a couple of topics that I particularly enjoy discussing, which is one, the law, and two, Marvel movies. As you know, right now I'm going through the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right in the middle of phase 2. So let's go ahead and jump right into the lawsuit that Scarlett Johansson filed against Disney and Disney Plus. So essentially, the lawsuit is filed by Scarlett Johansson against Disney for its release of the Black Widow movie onto its streaming platform, Disney Plus. So the lawsuit that Scarlett Johansson filed against Disney was filed in the Los Angeles Superior Court. Now, usually, superior courts are what we call courts of general jurisdiction, meaning that they can hear almost any type of case. Unlike perhaps something like a small claims court, and you may be familiar with small claims court, oftentimes they'll have a limit as to the types of cases that they can hear. So small claims court, for example, in Georgia is limited to a lawsuit less than $15,000. So if you had a $20 million lawsuit, you would not be able to file that in what we call magistrate court here in Georgia, but in a lot of other places, they just simply call them small claims court. So she filed her case in the Superior Court because it's a court of general jurisdiction and she can discuss and seek an enormous amount of damages in her suit. Now, in the suit against Disney, interestingly enough, she says that she doesn't have the relationship with Disney, she has it with Marvel. She says that Disney interfered with her contract with Marvel. Now, as we know, Disney owns Marvel, but they are two distinct companies, and her lawsuit is specifically saying that Disney, you interfered with my contract with Marvel. So her lawsuit is very interesting in that regard because there's no real relationship between her and Disney other than to say that Disney interfered with her relationship with Marvel. Now, what did Scarlett say about Disney's interference with Marvel? She says in her lawsuit, essentially she alleges that Disney interfered with the relationship by inducing Marvel to also release it on the Disney Plus streaming platform. As you may well be aware, one of the more interesting aspects of the pandemic is that movies were shut down for quite some time. They've opened up to some limited capacity, but many studios are releasing movies not only in the theater, but oftentimes on streaming services like HBO Max. Peacock is another streaming service that releases movies, and Disney essentially has done the same by releasing Black Widow on its Disney Plus platform. Now, Scarlett Johansson is saying that her agreement with Marvel was that it would only be released theatrically in the beginning. And the reason for that, we can all put together, was that Scarlett had an agreement with Marvel that part of her salary would come from the box office receipts. And since she alleges that since Disney induced them to not release it theatrically, but also, they did release it theatrically, but they also released it in the streaming platform, that she was harmed because some amount of people chose to watch it on the streaming service and not go to the movies. So the box office draw was lower than it should have been. Additionally, she cites evidence that the following weeks that it was released, there was a sharper decline than usual for a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, in that her allegation is that more people were just simply watching it at home rather than repeatedly going out to watch it in the movie theater. And she was harmed by that. And so she alleges that Disney interfered in that way with her agreement with Marvel. She also adds some exhibits to the lawsuit, meaning emails and things of that nature, and Disney has responded to the lawsuit. Interestingly, when Disney responded, they said that the lawsuit has no merit. That's a very blanket statement, essentially just meaning that there is nothing to this lawsuit. She's alleging that we interfered with her relationship with Marvel, but there's nothing to it. There is no such interference. But they also said two other things that I found very, very interesting. The first thing, and I'll quote here, is that they say that her lawsuit was especially sad and distressing in its callous disregard for the horrific and prolonged global effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. I found this very interesting because they're really saying possibly one of two things. First, they could be saying that Scarlett, it is a little bit callous on you to be arguing about money you should have received, especially large sums of money, when many people who are suffering from the pandemic have lost their jobs, they're not able to earn as much as they normally would, and here you are arguing about millions of dollars when you've already been paid millions of dollars. That's a very interesting argument on Disney. I don't think that paints them in a very good light. Because ultimately you should earn what you are entitled to. So, them saying that, I guess one person could say that it was salary shaming Scarlett. But in the end, if that's what she's entitled to, then how could that be shameful for her to earn the salary that she's entitled to? I don't think that paints Disney in a very interesting light. Second, they could be saying that it's callous in that asking people to go to the theater could expose them to the coronavirus and the COVID-19, and that could result in health problems for people that did attend the movie theaters. Therefore, she's being callous in asking people to go to the theaters, perhaps exposing them to the coronavirus. So that is an interesting argument as well. I mean, they're either saying, one, it's callous that you're asking for money when many people have lost their jobs during the pandemic, or they could be saying, two, that, listen, you're asking people to go to the theater when there's a spike in the Delta variant, and that people could be exposing themselves to the coronavirus by going out there, and you shouldn't be asking them to do that. So those could be the two arguments that Disney is making when they say that it's callous for her to bring this lawsuit while everyone is facing the COVID-19 pandemic. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Either way, I don't know if that is necessarily painting Disney in a great light. Another thing that Disney brought up is that by releasing it on the streaming service, which they're not denying, and it's really impossible to, we all know that it was released on the streaming service. Another thing that Disney is saying is that it allowed her, by releasing it on Disney Plus, to enhance her ability to earn additional compensation. There's no really clarification as to what that additional compensation is. Perhaps they are saying that they have some type of agreement with her that she would be paid from the streaming royalties. I'm not exactly sure what they are saying there that her additional compensation might be. There doesn't appear to be any language in the complaint itself saying, oh, I'm also supposed to be getting this additional money from the streaming service. I just happen to be harmed by the lack of the widespread theatrical release. So I'm not really sure what the additional compensation she might be receiving. Perhaps Disney all along had planned to give her a portion of the streaming service royalties. But that just hasn't come to light in any of the news or the complaint and the response that we're seeing through this lawsuit. So it'll be interesting to see what they mean by this additional compensation that she's being entitled to. They say that just releasing it on there has significantly enhanced her ability. Well, what is that ability, and what is the additional compensation that she might be entitled to? Very, very interesting lawsuit that we have here. Now, as many of you know, I used to be a judge, and one of the things that I find fascinating about this is that it is highly unlikely that this case will ever go to trial, just from the simple fact that most cases don't go to trial. More than likely, there is some type of mediation or arbitration clause in the agreements that would require her to go to arbitration. The one exception here is that she didn't have a relationship with Disney. She is saying that it is a tort, meaning that she's been injured, much like you would see in a personal injury lawsuit. This just happens to be monetary. The arbitration clause or mediation clause might not apply here because it doesn't seem to show that she sued Marvel, but instead that she sued Disney, and she doesn't really have that contractual relationship with them, it doesn't appear, because she's claiming a tort and not necessarily a breach of contract. Now, I'm sure I haven't been able to get a copy of the lawsuit just from going on what I see in the news. She appears, I'm sure that she has had many other allegations, and perhaps she has the breach of contract allegation in there, but the big one seems to be the tort that she's claiming that Disney interfered with her relationship, what happens to be a tort and not necessarily a breach of contract action. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this lawsuit plays out over the next few months and few days. But that is essentially the big part of the lawsuit. One, she's claiming that Disney interfered with her relationship with Marvel by releasing it on its streaming service. Disney, for whatever reason, responded that it was callous for her to do this during the COVID-19 pandemic. Again, I don't think it paints Disney in a very good light. But they responded saying that they have enhanced her ability to get additional compensation by releasing it on the streaming service. This lawsuit has large implications for the movie industry. Many of you may know that a lot of the other studios have already started compensating its stars for the release of the movies on their streaming services. For example, Wonder Woman 1984, Warner Brothers had, it's all in the news that they had paid Gal Gadot and Patty Jenkins and others for releasing it on their streaming service as well as the theaters to make up for that loss there. It just doesn't appear that Disney has done that, and perhaps that's what Scarlett is upset about. So this lawsuit does have large implications as to the movie industries and how things are going to be going forward. I think what they anticipate is that the movie industry, movie theaters in particular, they just are not going to be the same following the COVID-19 pandemic, and that the streaming services are really going to be the wave of the future. And so there's just a lot of things going on with this lawsuit. A Pandora's box has been opened. So it'll be very interesting to see how all of these things get addressed throughout the days as this lawsuit progresses. Of course, we will keep you updated on things that we learn as we go along, but we appreciate you watching the video. We hope you'll subscribe to the channel as we go along, reacting to Marvel movies in general, Star Wars and other types of franchises, and TV shows as well. It's and reviewing these types of legal cases that get filed that we find very interesting. So again, thank you for watching. I hope you subscribe to the channel. Until we watch the next video together, I'll see you then.